Do you know what? I'll be
What?
back in a second.
Oh, for fuck's sake. Maybe I should just speak to Editing Matthew. Hello, Editing Matthew. How's it going? Did you know that lettuce is like 98% water? I don't know if that's true or not. I'm going to Google it. 96%. I mean, I was pretty close.
Hello again.
Hello again.
I'm back, and I just brought with me a glass of... Evan has his rosé wine, so I have the equally scrumptious and intoxicating blackcurrant diluting juice, and a bag of sweet popcorn.
Oh, love to see it, love to hear it, love to taste it.
Butter Kiss. If Butter Kiss would like to sponsor us,
please email us at wordswithoutwisdm, no O in the wisdom, @gmail.com.
wordswithoutwisdm @gmail.com. We will not at this time be taking images of services.
Please redirect those to, what's Riley's email address?
RileyMorgan7 @gmail.com.
Thank you.
Welcome back, welcome here, and welcome everyone to the Words Without Wisdom podcast. The podcast where we answer the questions you didn't know you wanted to know the answers to. As always, I am one of your hosts, Matthew Lyon, and I'm here with my other host.
I'm your other host, Evan Dixon. Evan Stuart Joseph Dixon.
Do you know what? I actually didn't know that's what the SJ stood for.
Really?
Nope, never bothered to ask.
Never bothered to ask. You've never bothered to guess.
Well, I thought it might have just been a thing you just made up.
No.
I'm not going to lie.
Evan Stuart Joseph Dixon. I feel like I thought people knew that.
Maybe no, they probably do.
People probably do know that. It's just that you don't know that.
I'm ignorant.
I've now made it more easier for people to commit identity fraud on my behalf.
What's your mother's maiden name?
Everyone knows my mother's maiden name.
Oh yeah, she still uses it. What are the 4 numbers on the back of your bank card?
69420.
That is 5 numbers.
Well, you'll have to guess which one not to use. It's also 3 numbers on the back of a bank card.
Oh, do you have a 3-digit security code?
All security codes are 3 digits, are they not?
No, mine's
Really?
4. Uh-huh.
No, on the back of the card, it's the last 4 numbers of the card, and then it's a 3-digit security code.
Nope. American Express definitely has 4.
That makes... Why do you have an American Express?
Well, I don't.
You're neither American nor Expressy.
I don't have an American Express. There are some...
You just steal your dad's bank card.
No, I'm just aware of American Express bank cards with 4 digits in the security code.
That's confusing.
This is the kind of riveting questioning and answers you get on the Words Without Wisdom podcast. Anyway, it is our 9th episode. We'll finally get back to whatever kind of introduction we were doing there. Hello.
Hello. Yes.
Evan, you said you have rosé wine. Is this a particular special occasion, or are you just
I went
having fun?
I'm just having fun. I went to the pub tonight for dinner. I didn't go myself.
Went to the pub.
I went.
Is that
with
your first
Miss
pub experience as an 18-year-old?
Indeed. And
So did you consume pub bought alcohol?
I did consume pub bought alcohol with my own money, which was incredibly weird and felt wrong.
I would have been annoyed.
Shout out to the pub.
Because I didn't want to pay for it.
Shout out to the pub.
Shout out to the pub. So not a special occasion then?
No, not a special occasion. Never a special occasion. I haven't experienced a special occasion in a whole month.
And the last was presumably your birthday.
Yeah. Anyway, Matthew, you see, we both sound quite dull tonight, so... I mean, I don't know what the issue... The issue with me is that A, it's late, and B, I've consumed some alcohol.
The issue with me is A, it's late, and B, I've consumed some blackcurrant diluting juice, which always gets my juices flowing.
That's a horrid image.
Here's something I wanted to discuss with you, which was brought to my attention tonight. We are both prospective or hopeful future alumni of Glasgow University, right?
Don't say that, because you're a prospective, hopeful future alumnus of Glasgow University.
You're going to get an offer.
Am I though?
Just to be clear, Glasgow Uni applicant service this year has been
terrible,
appalling,
absolutely terrible.
And we would like to submit,
if you are an
via
admissions
this
officer
podcast,
for the University of
a
Glasgow,
formal complaint.
We would like to email you from our email address, which is wordswithoutwisdom, not O in the wisdom, @gmail.com, to complain about your complete slowness. I mean, what's the date? The 30th of April?
We would like to do that, yes. We would like to do that. The 30th of April, exactly.
I mean, for God's sake,
some
just
pupils
reply to me.
having already sat the exams on which their conditional grades will be met or not met.
Exactly.
And they don't know for what subjects they need.
How do I know which subject to ignore?
How do I know how to game the system? He asks. As you will be a prospective future alumni. Anyway.
Alumnus.
Before you go into the university, if we hope that we get there, tell me, what do you believe your choice of student union will be? The Queen Margaret Union or the University of Glasgow Union or the GUU or whatever it was, UGU or whatever it's called?
First of all, I was reading the other week that the Glasgow University Senate or like student council or however they're governed voted by a very slim margin in like the 90s not to join the National Student Union, which I just feel quite annoyed about. And I don't know why, but I just feel like, they should have joined the National Student Union.
Mm-hmm. Here's a question.
So, well, to answer your first question, I'm not sure.
You're not sure. What do you think you align more with, the hip hop? No, I don't know. I've heard that the Queen Margaret Union is more alternative, let's say, and the other union is quite snobby.
I don't know, because I'm both alternative and snobby.
You're an alternative snob.
I'm an alternative snob. I'm a snob about people. I'm like, how can you not have heard of France Gall, the famous French singer? Because, like, that's my alternative taste, about which I'm a snob.
But I have been informed by a previous member of that union, of the snobby one.
Who was that?
I shan't say. That at Freshers Week, or during the year, in fact, of that, being a member, or during the years at university of being a member of that union, sometimes they do, or they did at least 30 years ago, cheese and wine nights. So how does that sound to you?
I don't eat dairy, but the latter of those two things
apparently it was
appeals.
90% wine and 10% cheese.
I've just spat wine all over my face.
It is favoured among law students.
Oh well. Maybe, you know what?
I get the feeling, Evan, that we may, if we both get into Glasgow, may end up in competing unions. Because I feel like you will go for the wine and snobbery, and I will go for the alternative scene of the Queen Margaret, which I've heard is shit, but I don't care.
That's
Alternatively, funny. I've also been informed that you can access the unions and all the benefits of the unions without actually joining the unions.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
Any
that
point
you can
in
just
joining.
Access the opposite union.
Yeah, I don't understand why you'd ever join a union. Just if it makes literally no difference to your experience of the actual places or things that go on.
Oh, the only union I need is the European
Workers'
one.
Rights Union.
As a future member of PCS.
What's PCS?
PCS is the Civil Service Union, trade union.
Why are you going to be in PCS?
Because I'll be joining HMRC. Can I say that? Is that like exclusive information? Am I going to lose my job?
Oh yeah, you've got a job with that company.
It's not a company, it's a government department, but yeah.
That government department, yeah. No, I realised immediately after I said that was wrong.
But yeah, no, so...
I forgot you had that job.
Yeah, so did I, to be honest.
Apparently, there are two people that I know who used to work for MI and who met and became engaged in a romantic relationship whilst working at MI.
That's cute.
It's not, because MI is heinous.
Well, you know what I just suddenly remembered? Did you ever watch M.I High?
I did watch M.I High.
It was.
Why?
And I've just you mentioned MI5. M.I High was amazing on CBBC after school.
Who needs MI5 when you have MI9? The titular spy agency of M.I High. It's not titular, but whatever.
Well, sort of. The MI is titular.
Sort
Can I
of.
also say that when I was in primary 6 or 7, I wrote it was sort of a spin-off of M.I High, but like an unlicensed spin-off called, you ready for this? The Investigators.
No doubt set in your primary school.
No, it was set in Luca Dixon's bedroom.
What? What?
And it was about a child-run version of MI5 or MI6 called MI Junior, like 10-year-old children. And I wrote a whole like script for it, which I included like a anthropomorphic potato called Pete the Potato.
What?
Played by Money McGee.
M.I High? Ah! I thought this was a spin-off of M.I High.
I think it was inspired by M.I High, but like
Okay,
it was
not
also
a
a
spin-off.
standalone series.
So the potato doesn't exist in the same universe.
It doesn't really. There's no
As say
crossover
Frank the
with
Caretaker.
M.I High, but it was inspired by M.I High.
You didn't have a wee Rose cameo or a wee Oscar cameo anywhere in there.
No, but it was called the. I don't even think anyone will remember this, but it was me, Luca, Murray, Ewan, and I, you know what? I'll send you this. I still have the script. I'll send you it.
I would love to see that.
It was so terrible.
But you know what? I don't blame you, because when I was around that age, maybe slightly younger, there was a cupboard in one of the corridors in our school, which I was absolutely certain was the entranceway to our own primary school's M.I High base. And I would hang around outside that door to wait for someone to go in to see if I could catch them in the act of pulling the hat, like the mop lever, and going down into the base.
Oh no.
Suffice it to say, I never saw it happen.
That's depressing.
That is disgusting children for you, eh?
I hate. Well, you know, as I said last week, I don't even hate myself from 8 years ago. I hate myself from 8 minutes ago. So
yeah, that's a recurring theme on this podcast.
Hating yourself from 8 minutes ago.
8 minutes ago, it was 11 minutes into this recording.
Oh, I hated myself from then.
And I was being quiet, so most likely you were actually speaking.
Shocking.
Although I wonder what you were saying. Maybe I'll edit in what you were saying, or more likely, I won't bother.
It's probably something really hot. And speaking of hot...
Especially considering the amount of work I have to do for Ronnie Ross. And that ties us nicely into the hot or not, because Ronnie Ross is not...
Stilton Academy's hottest teacher. Cue the music.
Welcome to America's Hottest Politicians with Matthew Lyon and Evan Dixon. I'm just sitting here eating popcorn. It's all going to show up on the mic, and I'm gonna hate myself from the future, but I don't care.
I'm so jealous of you. I had a noodle.
Why?
I had like a noodle bowl for dinner.
Sounds nice. I had Chinese.
Ah, nice.
Not really. It was a bit hard, although the rice was quite fresh.
Hello and welcome to Hot or Not, also known as America's Hottest Politicians. This is the segment of the podcast where I pick out a politician, an American politician whom I find particularly attractive, and rank them based on 3 criteria, and Matthew will inevitably disagree with my judgment.
So, who is this week's hot or not candidate then, Evan?
Good question, Matthew. This week's hot or not candidate is the former governor of Montana and a former Attorney General of Montana. He also ran for president in 2020 and Senate in 2020. And his name is Steve Bullock.
Not going to lie to you.
Never heard of him?
Never heard of the man.
I don't think many people in the Montana governor's office have heard of Steve Bullock.
Did he run in the Democratic primary?
He did in 2020.
Wow.
So yes. So for looks, Mr. Bullock achieves a 6. For charm, he achieves a 7. For policy, he achieves a 6. This puts his overall rating at 63.3% and his overall aesthetic rating at 65%.
That's quite low, isn't it?
It is, but like, you know, there's something about him. As it stands, independents are the average overall hottest party affiliation, and Republicans are the highest average aesthetic party affiliation.
He is a Democrat, though.
Also, I think Florida still remains the hottest. Florida and Vermont, I think, maybe tied for... Oh no, just Florida is the hottest state.
It's also quite warm there.
It is. It's funny because it is.
I'm funny. Do you have anything else to say on Steve Bullock before I jump in?
Average overall hotness increases by age still. So,
Interesting.
That's hot or not. So, that's what I say.
Well, here's what I say. For the first time, Evan, I still disagree, but for the first time in this hot or not segment, you've presented me with a candidate who I understand your attraction to, because he's not massively old, he's not really wrinkly, he doesn't have grey hair, he has a normal face, and he wears an open collar quite well.
So, I count that as a success. I'm not going to lie.
You've still yet to find someone who I actually think is hot, though, so the search will go on.
And on.
Next week. So, Evan thinks hot.
And Matthew thinks not.
You've been listening to America's Hottest Politicians with Matthew Lyon and Evan Dixon. So yeah, as you mentioned just before, as you were rudely interrupting me there at the end of the hot or not segment, it is going to be our 10th episode next week.
That's scary, but time passes scarily.
Yeah, I think 10 weeks ago was our first episode.
And probably about 11 and a half weeks ago, you said to me, I want to do a podcast. And I went, I'll do a podcast with you.
Yeah. I went around many people, and then eventually I came
wow.
That's of course a joke. There's no one I'd rather do a podcast with, Evan. You know that.
Okay.
So the Words Without Wisdom podcast is the podcast of two chums
chilling in a hot tub,
5 feet apart,
because one of them isn't gay.
They've yet to fully relax coronavirus restrictions. So
one of them be gay, and one of them swing both ways. Why did I say be?
One of them be gay, one of them swing both ways.
Verbs.
Interesting take I'd like to get your opinion on.
I don't know if I want to give my opinion on it, but go ahead.
Hi, it's editing Matthew here. What I proceeded to do at this point was make a series of very disturbing and strange noises with my mouth, and so for viewer comfort I've decided to cut them out, but just so you're aware, that's what happened. There's a bit of popcorn stuck in the back of my throat. It's quite
I hate
disturbing.
That. See, when you're eating like rocket or like mozzarella, I don't eat dairy anymore, but like when I would eat mozzarella, I don't know why I'm clarifying that, as if like any of the audience are like so judgmental about me eating dairy. But like when you're eating
the vegan police will come
or
after
mozzarella
you.
or something that is like is really long and it's stuck in your throat and you have to like reach in and pull it out, it's the worst thing.
I was once eating a jelly sort of sweet snake thing from the local convenience store by our school, and I ate the thing, and as I was walking along eating it, I started choking on the head of this snake. And I nearly suffocated. I had to, there was someone like slapping my back, and I had to reach in and pull the snake out of my throat.
Gross.
It was a really unpleasant experience.
Anyway, there was something you wanted to get my opinion on.
I saw, I don't believe it was an entirely serious take, but Love and Monsters is the bisexual agenda. What do you think of that?
I mean, is there a bisexual agenda?
Yes, it's mine and mine alone.
Okay, that feels more just like the
My
Matthew
agenda
Lyon
is to turn all gay men No, the bisexual agenda does exist. It's to turn all gay men into bisexuals, all gay women into bisexuals, all straight women into bisexuals, and the mass genocide of all straight men.
See, that just feels like conversion therapy.
It's the only solution to world problems.
I think you're right.
You know, I think anyone who isn't bisexual is being sexist. Gay men are misogynists.
I know.
Lesbians are misandrists.
Absolutely.
Straight women are misogynists. They just can't. Their internal misogyny is so deep rooted. That's straight women for you.
I know, absolutely.
Lesbians are not giving men.
It must have been something wrong with my upbringing that just made me not like the
women
opposite
that they
sex.
require. And gay men,
I must have just not had
women.
a strong. I must have just not had a strong mother figure or father figure.
You didn't have a strong mother figure, and you saw your.
Please don't put that in, please.
According to Sigmund Freud, we do love Sigmund Freud here.
We do. We do. We don't.
I'd like to reaffirm the Words Without Wisdom podcast's commitment to a anti-conversion therapy stance.
Absolutely.
The Words Without Wisdom podcast is now and forever officially anti-conversion therapy, just in case anyone was wondering.
You cannot change someone's sexual orientation. Well, I don't know. Well, maybe you can. But that's yet to be proven. Maybe you can. I mean, to be fair, Michelle Gomez perhaps.
Are you saying
changed
Michelle
mine.
Gomez may make you change your sexual orientation?
Yes, which would make her a proponent of conversion therapy, I suppose. But like, she's Michelle Gomez.
Any attractive straight women are conversion therapists.
To be fair, I find a lot of women attractive, but Michelle Gomez, oof. But like, I don't mean to say that Michelle Gomez is an object of my attraction. Michelle Gomez is a very talented actress and presumably a very nice person above everything.
She has children.
She does.
So, of course, at the end of this podcast, we always do a section ranking and or ranking. We're doing a section ranking every episode of Doctor Who in an attempt to answer the question, what is the best episode of Doctor Who? But I think we would be remiss, and I would feel remiss, regardless of I think whether or not you want to talk about this, Evan, in not mentioning Noel Clarke and the ongoing serial sexual predatory behaviour allegations against him.
Listen, what can you say when it's something like, what was it, 20 accusers?
Yeah.
It's hard not to believe the accusers.
But I'm often found trying to argue for a view or a reaction that takes into account the unproven nature of these things and not dogpiling people who have had allegations made against them, because it isn't always true.
Well, you don't want someone's career to be destroyed on allegations alone, but at the same time,
especially if they end up not being true.
But at the same time, you don't want to sort of diminish what are clearly, 20 women.
No, this is what I was going to say. In a case, say, like, when it's one woman, every woman's voice matters, and you should both protect the victim and make sure that you don't assume guilt. But in this case, 20 women is just, it's too many to even consider that he may be not guilty. It just, we must, and I think I've seen this talked about in the, I wouldn't consider us the Doctor Who community, but we're talking about Doctor Who, and I feel like we have to stand up and talk about this, because it represents a culture of people getting away with systematic exploitation of women, abuses of power by powerful men, and it needs to be mentioned by every single person in every conversation. Yeah. Regardless of, we're just like, it's not going to change anyone's opinion or change anything that we mention it on a podcast with 15 listeners.
like obviously separate what I believe you should separate art from the artist, but not forget the artist, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, I mean, in terms of that, if anyone out there wants to, and I certainly probably will be, go on enjoying the episodes of Doctor Who that we're probably just about to talk about with Mickey in them and with Noel Clarke in them, and you know, enjoy that character and enjoy the performance, you can still do that. I just think it has to be acknowledged and made clear that regardless of that, you can't defend him just because you love a show or because you love a character or because you love films that he did or roles he's played.
Exactly.
And even though we're only a podcast with 15 listeners or whatever it might be, every person should talk about this because that's the only way that will prevent these kind of things from happening.
And you know what? I hope he didn't. In the sense that
I hope he didn't, because
I hope that 20 women didn't get sexually assaulted, because that would be awful.
Everyone should hope that someone is not guilty of that kind of thing, because if they're not guilty, it means nothing bad happened.
Exactly. But
you know? But in this case, it's very unlikely that he isn't guilty.
Indeed.
Or more accurately, very likely that he is. So I just wanted to mention that, because I felt that we would be doing a disservice if we didn't.
Who would have thought that Doctor Who would have gotten in such a serious knot? We should do something a bit more lighthearted, like, I don't know, the Eurovision Song Contest. You know,
like
as
ranking Doctor Who episodes.
Funnily enough, as a gay man, I don't like the Eurovision Song Contest.
Next week, for our 10th episode, we will be doing Eurovision Song Contest special.
Okay, right, this isn't true, right? I like the Eurovision Song Contest up until about 1988, and then it got boring because I'm a language geek. And
everyone started doing it in English.
Everyone started doing it in English after the 80s.
And
after Celine Dion.
People stopped being interesting as well. Exactly. I think that's the problem. Like, you've got, like, Bucks Fizz. You don't get Bucks Fizz anymore.
I know.
There's a reason, Britain stopped winning. Is because it especially stopped putting forward. Eurovision is supposed to be wacky. Like, nobody wants to watch Eurovision. The stress patterns in that word were totally off. Eurovision, to see like a sort of D-tier singer who no one's ever heard of from 28 different countries or whatever, singing a boring normal pop song or something. No one wants to hear that. They want to see Bucks Fizz singing, making your mind up, and
back to
ripping skirts off and singing in foreign languages.
Back to France Gall. She revolutionised. She shook up Eurovision because it was the same. Everyone sang in their native language and it was boring, and everyone sang boring old love ballads. And she came in and sang Poupée de cire, Poupée de sang about she sang a song about a pop singer and it was the first upbeat song to ever, and she represented Luxembourg. It was the first upbeat song ever in the contest. She sang about a pop singer who sang shallow, vapid songs and with meaningless lyrics.
So it was quite a meta performance.
It was quite a meta performance. She was highly exploited by Serge Gainsbourg. You know, it was great stuff. Eurovision from the 60s, great stuff. Really revolutionised European pop music. But
you really can't say revolutionised, can you?
Revolutionised European pop music, but like, I just love France Gall.
This is the official podcast of the France Gall fan club.
Anyway,
any thoughts on France Gall?
Please
send them to us
at
wordswithoutwisdom at gmail.com. No in the wisdom, wordswithoutwisdm at gmail.com. And finally, we'll get to it. It's time for ranking Doctor Who episodes in our quest to answer the question even, what is the greatest Doctor Who episode of all time? Right, so, as always, let me just remind you all, we are placing these episodes on a tier list that goes from the greatest to amazing to good to okay to bad to awful and then to not canon, but we're not putting anything in not canon because we don't believe in it. We probably should just remove it, but it's fun to say that every single time.
Exactly, but we don't believe in denying reality. You have to acknowledge that. You have to acknowledge
everything's
it.
canon, things can just be bad, and you just have to accept that. So, having reviewed the Idiot's Lantern last week, this week we will be starting off on The Impossible Planet.
Indeed. Not much to say, to be honest. It's one of the... I would say this and its equivalent second part.
The Satan Pit.
The Satan Pit. Not much to say. Ood. Introduction of the Ood, which are...
Yeah, the Ood are used
classic.
effectively, and there's certainly a good horror... there's certainly a good build-up, I think. The main... essentially the first episode, I think, is the best one, really, because it's really let down in the payoff there in the final episode, because it's a big CGI literal devil.
The Ood almost make the CGI devil forgettable, because the Ood seem like the main sort of villain with the red eye disease thing.
They're really creepy. They're the Ood are just I think the Ood couldn't really have been the big villain. I don't think that would have worked, but they needed something.
But they're the more memorable
than the
literal
devil
antagonists.
thing, because that's just not good. And then the way in which that is resolved at the end with the spaceship and Toby, and it's just, the setup is pretty good. Planet falling into a black hole, and going down in the suits and stuff, and unfortunately there's some Rose Doctor love stuff which I hate, but whatever.
What I will say is that the mum from My Mad Fat Diary is in it. Claire Rushbrook.
Is she the one who goes into the pit?
Ida.
Yes, yeah, she's the one who goes into the pit with the Doctor. So for The Impossible Planet, I would put The Impossible Planet in okay.
So would I.
So that's in okay, and as we mentioned with the second part, the Satan Pit, I'd say it's actually worse enough that I'd put it in bad.
I wouldn't say bad. I would say it's... To be honest, two-parters are... It has to be a very specific type of two-parter for me to rank each part differently. So I would put it in okay, personally.
Okay.
But
I'll go
to be
with
fair,
okay.
Well, you're in charge of the actually
nope, it's
selecting
it's
the
in
rank.
Okay.
It's in okay. We can agree on
it's
that.
It's in okay. And that is that two-parter done, which brings us to
quite possibly the best episode of any TV programme in history ever.
It is the fantastic, the legendary, the infamous Love and Monsters.
Now,
pushing the bisexual agenda.
I don't know what that means, but I also completely understand.
Love and Monsters is such a perfect example of something, a specific idea being not good by its own merit, but good in how it's executed.
For a bit of historical context, you have the Absorbaloff, who's a villain. He's a cousin of the Slovene. Designed by a child for a Blue Peter competition, I think.
Yep.
Who played by Peter Kay.
Normally quite a good comedy actor.
Oh, a funny guy whose like gimmick is that he touches people and absorbs them into his flesh.
Yeah. Well, let's start with that. As an idea, not like completely terrible from the beginning. I think it's the way in which either the director or Peter Kay plays it that it makes it seem
like
sexual.
A parody. Well, yeah, it makes it seem like a porn parody of Doctor Who.
Like he like touches people and they get absorbed into him, and then he goes and he's like licking his lips, and he's like they taste so
like
good.
Chicken.
Yeah, like it's just not. It is like a porn parody of Doctor Who, but and especially because It is, of course, a Dr. Light episode.
It is. But
Which,
the cast...
The first one, the cast is good.
The cast is good. You have, I can't remember his name that plays Elton. Mark Warren.
Elton, a good character. Really fun to watch. I think Elton's possibly the standout of the episode.
Exactly. You also have Jackie Tyler by Camille Kaduri.
MILF of the century. Camille Kaduri, yeah. And those two, and that actually that, but just before you read the rest, that bit of the story, their relationship and like the way that unfolds is actually like good. Because
it's lovely. It's sweet.
In the end, it's Russell T Davies' homestead storytelling, and he's good at that.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, continue with this amazing cast of characters.
You have Shirley Henderson as Ursula, who, I mean, is like the secondary love interest who gets absorbed, and then he melts, and then she turns into and there's a line at the end.
The paving slab,
and I like Shirley Henderson. I think she's a great actress.
Point is, there are good characters.
And
it could, in theory, work. Dr. Light episode, we've Blink proves later that they are good and that they work. Turn Left proved that they work, But this proves that an idea does not inherently make something good. And it requires...
This proves that children should not come up with
monsters.
TV show.
And writers should not have to work around a design and try and come up with a story rather than come up with a story and then they make a design for it.
Do you know what I wonder? What did this beat out? Because there presumably were hundreds of entrants to this competition.
Thousands, presumably.
How shit were the other entrants that they beat out, that they were beaten out by the Absorbaloff?
They were beaten by the Absorbaloff. I couldn't begin to imagine. But anyway, I think it's suffice to say that Love and Monsters goes in bad.
And yet, it's like Mommy Dearest. It's like one of those things that is so bad that it is utterly entertaining to watch.
And enjoyable, yeah. And I'm going to say it goes in bad, not awful, because I think there are redeeming factors to it.
Oh yeah,
Elton's
totally.
a great character. Elton and MILF of the Century's relationship, there's some good stuff, and I think it's an interesting take to see how the Doctor affects people's lives as he just skips through,
Mm-hmm.
So would you agree with that? Bad, or would you want to put it in awful?
No,
or
bad.
The greatest.
I mean, yeah, I simultaneously want to put it in bad and the greatest.
But let's go with bad for now.
Let's go with bad, but let's know that in our hearts it's also in the greatest.
And that brings us, unfortunately, to the end of the podcast.
Indeed.
We have run out of time.
Because
actually
normally we would have time to do
now.
4 or 5 episodes, to discuss 4 or 5 episodes, but Love and Monsters is so complex.
Love and Monsters is so complex and so important to the legacy of Doctor Who that we just
seminal, one might say,
couldn't rush through it. So I'm afraid that's going to have to be the end. As always, I'm going to go through all the garbage. Make sure to follow the podcast. Make sure to rate us if you can. Make sure to share. Make sure to do anything on your screen related to the podcast. Do it. Get the engagement up. Share it with your friends. Send it to the man in Bangladesh. I don't care. Just do it. Make sure to go to the links in the description. Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on Twitter for updates. Follow the Words Without Wisdom Instagram on Instagram.
That's Words Without Wisdom Pod.
Words Without Wisdom Pod. The link is also in the description as always. Thank you very much for watching. We appreciate all the support. Thank you very much. So it's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from me.
Goodbye.